Hey guys, thanks for going on this nerd journey with me. If you want your episodes ad-free, go to makemeanerd.com/join and hit that button.
Hooked on you, baby, you're golden. Time moves, I never noticed. Just can't get enough. Got me wonderstruck.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Make Me a Nerd. I'm Mandy Kaplan, a mainstream mom whose mission it is to explore the world of nerd culture that I've been missing out on and afraid of my whole life. If you're new to the podcast, welcome aboard. Here's how this works. I don't know stuff about anything, and I've never done sci-fi, fantasy, superheroes, and anime, all of it foreign to me. So I bring on a passionate nerd, and they try to get me to love what they love. That's it. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you leave a review, a 5-star review, and you make a comment, that helps more people find the podcast, and I'd be very grateful. Like Jessie Pfister, who posted, "What can I say? Mandy is an excellent podcast host." $5 coming your way, Jessie. She knows her stuff and can eloquently elaborate on all things entertainment. Add this amazing podcast to your list of favorite podcasts. Thank you, Jessie. That was very nice of you. I met my guest today in the voiceover world. He is a fellow voiceover actor. So maybe we should do the whole thing in voiceover voices. He is a successful voiceover artist. I don't know much more about him because we met virtually and we've gotten the pleasure of working together. I know he's hilarious and wonderful, and he just said he could nerd out on any nerd shit all day long. I believe that's a direct quote from my new friend and yours, Jason Yeung.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. And yes, I can talk nerd stuff for forever. I grew up in the space, and yeah, I'm actually holding a dice right now, a D10. That's what I might use to fidget with and stuff like that whenever I'm recording. So I'm a huge nerd, and I'm super happy to be here. But I have to ask a question real quick here. How do you say anime? How did you pronounce it earlier?
I go back and forth. Some people say anime.
Who says anime? It's anime. I'm sorry, my nerd reflex triggered right there when I heard that. But I'm super happy to be here.
It's a debate. Well, it's funny because in working with you, I'd worked with you maybe 3 times when I said, "Hey, Jason," and I mean this in the highest compliment. Like, you seem like a wicked big nerd.
Mhm.
You're right. It's on you wear it like a badge of honor. Want to come on my podcast? So I knew you would be good for this, and the suggestions you made were all wonderful. But I picked Batman Beyond because it's unlike anything I've done in a while for the podcast.
Oh, yeah, no, Batman Beyond, I mean, you cannot be called a nerd unless you dabble into the superhero genre. You don't have to go super deep, but I mean, Batmans, your Supermans, your mainstream ones right there, everyone should know those. And for me, Batman Beyond was, I think, the most successful iteration of a handoff of a classic superhero where it could go very, very wrong, very, very bad, upset a lot of people, but they did it such a good way there. So yeah, absolutely a great series, and it was criminally underrated.
Now, was it based off of comics first, or it was his own TV entity?
So it's a mix of those here, but really what it was again, they just got through the animated series, which was, I still think, the greatest cartoon ever made. I'll argue that with anybody. The original Batman, the animated series, it was mature, it had great themes to it. The voice acting and character work, the script writing was all fantastic, and they did it all in, a 21-minute window. And so the handoff to, praise the classic characters, make sure that we're doing a service to them and then introducing someone new who can shape it for their idea of the future was, I think, absolutely fantastic. It's just one of those series that just had so much to it that it's really, really tough to express all the levels of what it does. And the biggest thing that I can say is that, it's a phenomenal series with great storytelling, amazing performances, and just the perfect level of fan service with introducing new ideas and themes around this iconic character.
And some cool shit. I mean, on a very basic level, some great music, great graphics, great gadgets that the bad guys have. We can get into it, but there's just some cool shit that was Not familiar to me because my knowledge of Batman is Adam West from the 60s. And I watched it religiously as a kid. I loved Batman. And then I saw the 90s,
Mhm.
the Joel Schumacher movies. I'm
Yeah,
saying that right?
Joel Schumacher, who
And Tim
decided
Burton, and
he
I saw those.
yeah, he took it in a unique direction. I think he actually came out and apologized for
Oh,
Batman and Robin. He says he didn't mean. I mean, when you create a full-on suit piece for Batman and you include the bat nipples on there, I mean, you got to apologize for that. I think at some point to the fans. But him and George Clooney and them, I think they came out. It was like 20 years ago or so, and they're like, "Yeah, no, we're sorry
whoops.
about that. We didn't
Yeah.
mean to go that campy and that ridiculous." We thought it would be fun, but, that's how it goes, I guess.
Yeah, I that's where I fell off. I don't think I've seen the new, like, Christopher Nolan Dark. I haven't seen those. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, so Batman Beyond was quite dark to me because it didn't resemble, at some points, the original 1960s TV series. But I pressed play on episode 1, and Bugs Bunny appears because it's a WB
Mhm.
property, and as Bugs Bunny appears, up in the corner, it says, "Violence and coarse language warning." I was like, "Over Bugs? That's strange. What am I getting into?"
You're getting into one of the best and, like I said, most criminally underrated cartoon series out there. I mean, when I first saw it, just the opening song, just like how hard it hit, the
Mhm.
music was just so different than the traditional Dark Knight theme that you have, or even I mean, I grew up with the campy Adam West ones too.
Yeah.
I love those, and it was such a stark contrast. But when it hit, and it showed like the themes of like courage, honor, betrayal, all these things. I was like, "Oh, what am I watching? This is the best thing ever." And then I was so bummed it only lasted 3 seasons, and I was very sad.
You're calling it criminally underrated, but it has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes with critics and a 95 with audiences. So it was appreciated. It just maybe didn't get enough audience. But
You
those who were watching it were really loving it, apparently.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we both, grew up in the entertainment industry and stuff like that, and, things can get released, especially in nerd culture, where it kinda goes under the radar, and at the time when it comes out, it has a handful of people who really like it, but it doesn't generate enough for the studios to feel comfortable in backing it, and that's really kind of what happened. There's a couple other sci-fi series like Firefly and things like that, which came out, and they were just horribly underrated. I loved them, and I nerded out. I told everybody in and their mothers to watch them because I just needed that kind of fan service to justify more money going into it, more seasons, more episodes, and so yeah, it got cut out short because it didn't pick up that traction early on. But then, as the development of streaming and things being re-released and stuff like that, it built more of that following, and then it started becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they had their own spacely movie series that they had for it, that came out
Oh,
later with the Joker, um, to kind of seal off that end of Batman Beyond. But yeah, it was so underrated at the time. Not many people were watching it when it first came out, but you're absolutely right. The people who did watch it loved it. They were like,
yeah.
"This is phenomenal."
Well, first of all, you mentioned Firefly. I just a few weeks ago did an episode with the incredible Chrissy Lenz, and she recruited me as a brown coat. So I fully get the love for Firefly. And I think also nowadays, and we won't go in the weeds about the industry, but nowadays they cancel things so fast. Your head could spin, right? They air 1 or 2 episodes, pull it, yank it, it's done. So it's great that this did get 3 seasons. Because
Oh
had
yeah.
this aired now, who knows?
Yeah, now if it didn't have the numbers, again, a lot of great shows nowadays just don't get there. But I mean, I was my first job was in the video games rental industry, so I worked for Hollywood Video and Blockbuster back in the
Mhm.
day and stuff like that. When you actually had to go out and rent your things,
Yep,
which I still miss those stores. I wish they
me
were
too.
still around. But like I would tell everybody who would come in, like when they're asking for like, hey, what's a good cartoon series or something like that here, and they were maybe in that teen range where they were looking for something a little darker, a little more action packed. I recommended that full force nonstop. I was like, you have to watch this, and every person that I recommended it to came back with the same thing, going like, why did they stop making the show?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, You mentioned the music, and I immediately thought, is this Nine Inch Nails? Because it is very Trent Reznor-y, but it's not Trent Reznor, it's Christopher Carter, and it gets you amped. It's like driving and pulsing and really a different feel in a great way. And then the episode is called Rebirth Part 1, and it's introduces basically the new Batman, a young guy named Terry McGinnis, and he discovers Bruce Wayne and says, like, I'll take over for you, old man, if you can't keep doing this Batman stuff. But Batman, in the very opening sequence, Batman pulled a gun.
Yeah.
And I was very shocked. And I thought Batman was not a gun. It was just like, what is this? This doesn't feel DC. It doesn't feel superhero-y. It doesn't feel Batman-y. What happened there, Jason? Why is he pulling a
So
gun?
so I loved what they did here, and I was the same way. I can still remember I was, sitting there with my, sister at the time, and she's a bit older than me, but we were watching cartoons, and I remember we both saw that, and she was a nerd like me, and she was like, "Oh my god, I don't think I've ever seen Batman actually do why did he do that?" And the writers and the way they went about it was so good. They kept Batman at his core is, he is this dark anti-hero kind of persona, but he has certain lines that he will never cross. He won't kill, he won't do certain
Right,
things.
right.
And so in the first 5 minutes of that cartoon to show him pulling a gun because he's desperate, because he's about to die, he's about to lose the young girl who was again kidnapped, who was going to be, executed by these criminals and stuff like that. And you can see even like when he pulls his mask off, you can see the blood coming down his face and his hands are shaking as he's looking at the gun. I was like, that for a cartoon at that
Right.
time was phenomenal, and it hooked me instantly, and I think they did such a wonderful job of portraying why he shut it off. Because again, everyone I think it's a universal thing. We feel we can keep going, we keep going, we keep going, especially if it's something we're passionate about and we love, but we get to a certain age where your body's just like, "You can't do this anymore," and I think they
Even with all the tech, even though the suit, this premise is like, because Batman has no superpowers. Batman
Yeah.
is a guy who puts on a suit, and it gives him powers, but they're not supernatural, which we'll also talk about. But right, it's like they're technology, advanced technology that can make him fly, that can make him leap buildings or shoot uh, things in the old show when he used to climb up the buildings from the thing on his utility belt.
Yeah,
Uh,
his grappling hook, he
yeah,
used that a lot here. So, yeah, no, you're absolutely right on that because, it's he was basically Batman was last in line for superpowers, but he was first in line for gadgets and money, in terms of when they were creating characters and stuff. And, that's what really makes him a psychological hero, and I think it's one that makes people kind of imprint on him because they're like, "Man, this is just a normal dude who's going out trying to do justice. He has a tortured past. He has all these demons that he battles, and he has to overcome those things while still dispensing justice in this way here." And I thought they did a phenomenal handoff. I mean, so many shows we see now that try to take over or reimagine or hand off the torch to another hero or something like that here, they mess it up. It's not good. It's not a clean handoff. It doesn't make sense. But for him, it makes sense that he used his money to make him a suit to help augment him since he's older now. It
right,
gave him better strength,
right,
agility, things like that. But even with all the technology, he could not overcome the heart complications that he had that
right.
basically made
And
him
age
stop.
comes for us all. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
a fact. And they established Terry McGinnis well, that he fights off a gang on a subway when they're trying to were they robbing somebody
Yeah, yeah,
or
they basically took the
harassing somebody?
Jokers yeah, they basically took
Okay.
the Joker and they made gangs that were, like,
Yeah,
honoring him, and then
yeah,
he basically fought them and showed that, he doesn't
right.
tolerate that kinda stuff in the subway,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so he's a good candidate to inherit the bat suit and to take over for Bruce Wayne. Um, there is, excuse me, some family drama. He suffers the loss of his dad, and there is some teen dynamics, and it veered a bit into like 90210
Yeah.
territory, the music and the drama. Is that an insulting
Oh,
thing to say?
no, no, it's not. It was such good world building, like, the slang that they came up with that they just used and just dropped normally, and again, credit to the actors and the voice directors and stuff like that for just delivering it just like how we would use slang and how kids now use riz and things like that and throw up things there here. It felt real. It felt, like this world was lived in, the characters were lived in, and they were well fleshed out, and the fact that he was this young kid who had a hot head. He did all these things that were probably wrong, but he met this mentor who gave him this channel to push these feelings and these emotions through as Batman. I thought was so well done. They didn't do a shot for shot remake of Bruce's parents died and now both his parents will die. They did it in a different way, but it still was incredibly impactful.
Yeah, I agree. And here's a one of my dumb observations. So when Terry goes to Wayne Manor, there are actually bats
Mhm.
in Wayne Manor. I have never realized bats, Batman, vampires. And I just did an episode interview with a vampire, the movie, and starting the new show with Johnny Lee Jr. Is there any correlation between Batman and vampires? Why is it a bat?
Well, it's a bet because he fell into a well. The broad scope of this here is, he fell into a well, bats were there, he got traumatized by bats, and he uses that as
Oh,
a source of fear to instill into his enemies. So it's
like
him.
immersion therapy when you
Exactly.
yes.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
exactly.
There is, because some of it, some of the superhero stuff feels, I'm sure this is a sacrilegious thing to say, but it's like, oh, it would be cool if he could blank. So let's just have him blank. And I didn't realize I've never my whole life, all my 32 years, shut up. Um, I've never realized why he was a bat or why he chose the theme of being a bat man.
Yeah, it was a symbol for fear. It was a symbol that, that he felt, what he could encapsulate because again, he was afraid of bats when he was younger and things.
Hmm.
And so by putting on the cape and cowl, he was able to channel that fear into them. And this is really kind of hammered home in the Dark Knight series with Christian Bale. They did a really good job of exploring that early on. So I know you haven't watched those yet. Those
Nope.
should be on your list though, because the first Batman Begins was so freaking phenomenal that it was it launched Batman in that kind of direction, getting away from the Joel Schumachers, getting away
Yeah.
from the Adam Wests and stuff like that. Because you're right, like Adam West was like the classic thing. Like, well, how does Batman do this? Well, it'd be cool if he could do this. Well, I have this gadget now, and they basically just anything he needed, he created,
Hmm.
and it was really campy in that sense.
Yes. We're moving on to episode 2 right after this. So it's a two-parter. It's Rebirth Part 2. Bruce and Terry become allies against ruthless industrialist Derek Powers, and Bruce agrees to train Terry as the new Batman. This one starts with Terry almost getting kidnapped by a bunch of henchmen, and he somehow beats up and escapes from a group of henchmen, which does feel like the old Batman.
Well,
Kapow,
yeah.
bang, smack, and then all the bad guys are laying down with birds over their heads, and Batman walks away unscathed, which I enjoyed.
I mean, you have to have that. You have to have some classic things thrown in there to show that, hey, this kid is special. This kid is, different. It'd be really weird if he was beaten up and he couldn't defend himself and then he was still picked as Batman. So you got to have that kind of stuff. And you have to have those campy moments where they overcome things or they summon, strength and adrenaline and they, knock out the bad guys and get away. Otherwise, there'd be no series. There'd be nothing else for us to talk about.
So I'd like to take a departure and share something about my childhood and my mindset. And I can pay you whatever the going therapy rate is. But I had the most massive crush on Robin, Burt Ward, in his
Oh,
tights and his boyish haircut that was like a little boy, like all slicked down. I used to, yeah, I used to dream he would sleep next to me in my bed to protect me from any bad guys. Nothing sexy, just
okay, okay,
he was
okay.
he was there in case of an intruder. Um, What does that say about me, Jason?
I don't know. It says a lot of things. I mean, you definitely should see someone about this because I think you're the first person. I've met a lot of people and I've had a lot of nerd debates. I've done conventions, I've done all these things here. I worked in game stores. We ran card tournaments for Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic. There's always nerd debates. You might be the first person I have met though who has told me that your dream crush that you had
Yes.
was on Robin
Yes. And Burt Ward, I
and
wanna be
Burt Ward.
clear,
Yeah,
not
no,
Chris O'Donnell.
no, yeah,
Not when he got muscles,
yeah.
but when it was like yeah.
That is an odd that's an I don't get a lot of firsts when it comes down to nerd culture, like, where it's like, "Oh, I heard this argument. Wow, that's an interesting argument here. Oh, that's an interesting take you have on that here." That is I can say hand on heart, that is a first I've heard, and no offense to Bert, again, I'm not saying that, he was bad or not, attractive or, being a superhero and stuff like that, but that's the first that I've heard of someone saying
I was hot for Robin. Yeah, I
Oh my
was.
oh my
It
goodness.
okay.
No nothing
That's
no love for Adam West?
no, he's too thick.
That's true.
Yep.
That's true. That was before they gave the fat, bat abs on the suits.
Yes. No, yeah, he not Adam West, not my body type. Uh, so this one, I started wondering because my only frames of reference are, and I lied, it's Batman the original series and Batman the Lego movies.
I
I
love the
am
I love the
Batman, right? So I do know Will Arnett's version of Batman, the
Mhm.
very self-deprecating, funny version. But I was wondering where this one honors the lore of Batman. You were saying, Bruce Wayne, his parents, and the vat and all of that. But then where does it deviate? And how do you feel as such a mega fan when it's like, whoa, 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 this is not what's been set up over 70 years of comics or however
Oh
many years?
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, you can change a detail on a superhero and you can ruin it for the fans.
Yeah.
100%, you can absolutely do that, and we see that, and we see a lot of that with some, toxic fandoms and stuff like that where people take it a little too far. But the way that they did this one here, one is it was just so engaging, the tone, the pacing, the characters, voice actors, they did a great job just displaying everything, but what really made it work for me was, one, you honored Batman right away. So in the first episode, you saw older Bruce Wayne, you understood 100% why he couldn't do this anymore and why a new champion was needed to put on the cape and cowl. In part two, that's where Terry became more of this relatable, sad, kind of guy you wanted to root for because he's gone through all this trauma and he's trying to get justice for his father, the same way that, Bruce Wayne wanted to get justice for his parents when they were murdered in an alleyway. And all of Batman's wards and the people, his sidekicks, whether it be Batgirl, who turned into Oracle, Robin, Nightwing, all of them here, they all sought him out and they all came to him. And he was as always, he was always very kind of reluctant at first to teach them how to do things. And it was a kind of a journey. And they had to prove to him that, hey, I'm going to do this with or without you. And he took that on himself to say, I have a responsibility to show them the right way to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to have a random vigilante out there. And I think Terry McGinnis, the way that they portrayed him, did it so well. He snuck in, he stole the bat suit, he took things into his own hands.
Mhm.
And, Bruce, I think at the time, he was looking at this kid saying, I see some of myself in him. And at the same time, I also can see where he's going to end up if I don't show him how to do things.
Mhm.
And they developed that relationship. So that's what really made it work for me is that one, it wasn't just a carbon copy. It wasn't like, oh, there's a new Batman now and he's exactly like Bruce. No,
Mhm.
Terry is 100. He's got a leaner silhouette. He fights differently. He fights wildly. He again is
He's a hothead.
he's a hothead.
Yeah.
He's very brash. He has, he conflates things, what's important, going out on a date with my friends or saving, the city or stopping crime. And we see that balance and Bruce's influence on him. I think for me, and what resonates with a lot of fans was that handoff and the way they did it honored old Bruce Wayne. He was still around. He wasn't like he was now passing the torch and he wasn't there. So we still got that taste of him every single episode. And Terry was, again, that journey. It's that coming of age story for him, which I think everyone can latch on to.
Right. And we see Terry's vulnerability and we get to know him and care about him. So therefore we root for him as the new Batman.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well crafted. You mentioned the voice actors. I want to stop down. George Takei as Mr. Fix, who is like not wordless, he speaks, but he's a gruff, angry henchman. And it's George Takei. I
Yeah.
thought that was what a nerd dream, right?
I totally forgot that he was Mr. Fix because it's been years since I've seen the show, and so when I was going through and you asked me to come on here, I was like, what can we watch here? And what did I love growing up that we can talk about here? And it was Batman Beyond. I went back and I looked at the voiceover cast and stuff like that, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I totally forgot that it was George Takei
Yeah.
who
It's
was there.
hilarious, but he
And
was great.
you would never have thought it was him. You would
No.
never have thought it was him. He didn't have the, "Oh, well, hello,"
Yeah.
kind of voice. He, again, just he was just they were all so good and so on point. But yeah, Mr. Fix, I totally forgot that was him when, and I never knew. For years and years and years, I watched that show repeatedly, clockwork every week. And then it wasn't until I got into voice acting that I started paying attention to the voice actors. I'm
Right.
like, what?
No,
What?
they're all very good. They made a point to cast well, and this was before the days of, well, I have to have a celebrity.
Yeah.
So whoever the biggest name we can get, right or wrong. This was before that. So Will Friedle, who I know from back in the day in voiceover, he was fantastic for this.
Oh,
He was not, I mean, he was on a Boy Meets World or something, but he wasn't, they didn't go out and get uh Justin Bieber or someone.
yeah.
I'm in the wrong era, but they got a real actor and he brings a real depth to it. And that's what they did for all the parts.
Yeah, and
So,
again, I cannot tip my hat enough to the entire team that worked on that because what they did, every voice felt unique, every voice had depth to it, emotion. It wasn't campy over the top or anything like that. It was
right.
all grounded in this dark, gritty future that they felt Batman went into, and it fit the tone perfectly.
Now, this was only the first 2 episodes, and they were both about this guy Powers, this evil conglomerate Elon Musky guy. And I'm happy to watch him be taken down. But I was missing the Joker and Catwoman and Penguin and the familiar bad guys. Do they enter the series later?
Yes, so they do. So, there's a
Oh,
handful of episodes where they do this, and the movie that they came out with, basically it was like an hour and a half movie a few years after the series ended when people were like, "We want more. Why'd you
right,
end this here?
right.
Well, why didn't you watch earlier?" That's
The
the kind of thing.
Serenity of Firefly. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So, one of the episodes, that I thought they did beautifully again was the episode with Mr. Freeze. So, Mr. Freeze,
Right.
is
Arnold Schwarzenegger, right?
yeah, let's not stop.
Sorry. I'm
I
sorry. I'm sorry.
I'll say this. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, even though he is horribly miscast as Mr.
Ah,
Freeze.
yeah.
Oh,
I wasn't clear if that was the same Mr. Freeze and if they
yes.
were setting that up. Okay.
Yeah, so it's the same thing. So Mr. Freeze has a great backstory. Pretty much all the Batman villains, most of the really mainstream ones have phenomenal backstories. And so he was, again, a tragic tale where he tried to save his wife by using cryotechnology and ended up turning himself into Mr. Freeze. And he was still alive. And most of Batman's villains are dead or gone at this point
Mhm.
here. And so in the opening shots in
Oh.
the Batcave, you see all the relics that he has in glass cases. You see Harley Quinn's suit. You see Two-Face's big coin. You see all these things in there. Well, Mr. Freeze was still alive. He was being kept in prison and his head was the only thing that was still alive. His head was it. And so they brought him back and they did such a beautiful tribute to him, showing, his tragic past, his second chance at life and how he fell back into being a supervillain because of Derek Powers.
Uh-huh.
And he ended at that point there. So they did such a great job on that. That was one of the best episodes. It's episode 5. It's called Meltdown, and it was
Yes.
phenomenal.
We watched that one. You're hearing you talk about some of these things on a deeper level, which is so nice. This is something that as I said, I lack depth sometimes, and I'm in it for the gadgets and the cool action sequences. But you're getting so much deeper meaning, and if that is your jam, or anybody listening, if that's your jam, there's a show also on the True Story family of podcasts called Superhero Ethics with host Matthew Fox. And they really dive into these things, like the ethical ramifications of somebody. If they're acting out of grief, does that forgive their evil? Or, and so I recommend everybody go check that out. They did an episode on Batman Beyond. So if
Oh,
it's your thing, Superhero Ethics, go check that one out. We're going to take a break and come right back. Welcome back, everybody. While I have you, I'd like to tell you all that Make Me a Nerd is a production of True Story FM, engineering by the peerless Pete Wright. My theme song is Wonderstruck by Jane and the Boy. You can get me on Instagram at Mandy_Kaplan_Clavens, both with K's, or on TikTok at Mandy Miscast. If you like what you're hearing, please become a member. If you go to makemeenerd.com/join, you can hit that button and that will get you your episodes ad-free and early, and all my gratitude. And now, back to the show. You wanted to go to Meltdown, but we also watched episode 3, Blackout,
oh
where
yes.
Terry faces a shape-shifting industrial saboteur. This caused a lot of confusion for me. And here's why. Batman doesn't have a supernatural element. And then here is this Big Hero 6. Did you ever see that movie?
Yes, I love that movie.
Yeah, but
Movie's
like
phenomenal.
it looked like that with all the magnetic things.
Yep.
And so shape-shifting is supernatural. This cannot be explained with technology.
Well, it can and it can't. So they actually, because I think that they introduced ink beautifully in this, because they couldn't just take and reskin and put the old school villains on there, because one, it's in a state where Batman now is amped up. So Terry McGinnis
Mhm.
he's got the suit, he's stronger, he can fly around now. He's got all these things now that make him more formidable. So the typical kind of villains that he fought in the past, which were just, for the most part, average people, they did have some supernatural elements. You had like Clayface, who was this creature who could shapeshift and, do all these kind of crazy things here. So they brought in Ink, and she was the first like true villain that the show showed besides Derek Powers. And the fact that she was this crazy, just blobby monster
Mhm.
was insane. And it was something that I've never seen before really in Batman. And it was so well done that they actually brought her back in season 2 and season 3 in like 4 more episodes, because of
Oh.
how good she was and how well the fans responded to her as a villain. She was just so I personally had never seen a villain like that before in any kind of medium so far at that point in my nerd journey.
Well, I love that it was a female. And
Mhm,
I used to really love Catwoman
mhm.
back in the day, on the 60s show. Was Batman uh pioneering in that way to allow women to be not just a sidekick or a love interest, but actually the main villain?
I think so. It got more and more prevalent for him, and you had like Harley Quinn, who started off very much as a side character, but because she got so much more popular and people started resonating with her more and more, she became her own kind of standalone person, and now she has her own series with Poison Ivy and stuff like that. Another great female villain character, Talia al Ghul, was Ra's al Ghul's daughter. There was so many wonderful like femme fatale type of people in there, but Catwoman really, for me, stood alone, because she was the contrast to the Dark Knight. She was, again, more playful. She was more seductive. She used her feminine charm to get things that she wanted without any kind of apology. She was just, this is me, and I'm going to do these kinds of things here. And they kind of had that attraction, and
Yeah.
it was so good. It was so well done. But Ink, for me, her entire backstory of how she got there and what she did throughout the entire story of Batman Beyond was fantastic. And, I highly encourage anyone to watch those episodes, because you see how she handled, her DNA mutating, breaking down. She got desperate and she needed certain things to be able to just survive and things like that here. It
Mm.
was really well done.
Yeah. It was also just cool as shit. She became um lips on a billboard,
Yeah.
right? So he's just we just pass a billboard, and then the billboard come the lips crawl out. It was so cool.
Oh,
Like her eye was the shine on the lipstick. It was I I was like, "Oh, that's
th
so cool."
that was some of the best choices that a directing or an animation or even in live action you can make here. When it makes sense, it was in the background and you see that little you think it's just a light, hitting the
Right.
poster, but then it moves and you're like, "Oh my god, look at that. That's so good." And then, yeah, it was phenomenal. I loved Ink. She's I think one of the best villains out there.
I She was very cool. This this was not one of my favorite episodes, not to offend, but there was not a lot of dialogue and not a lot of character. It was a ton of chase sequences and
Mhm.
action sequences. So, I do prefer witty back and forth and, when especially the pilot was so emotional
Yeah.
and had real heart and depth. This one felt like pretty cool, but not my favorite. Just
Yeah.
my personal
No, no, you're
preference.
I think you're spot on the money for that one here, but it's still a cartoon, it's still that action, so you have to have those action set pieces, you have to still
Yeah.
set these things up and throw really what was, I think, the first real big challenge. At the very end, there was a piece of dialogue where, where Terry looks at Bruce and he goes, "You're gonna show me everything now." Because he now realizes how dangerous things are. He nearly
Mhm.
died. He I mean, she Ink shoved her entire body into his lungs and his chest,
Mhm.
and he was dying right there, being
Yeah.
held up, and at the very end, he was like, "Okay, I need to get
Right.
more serious about this."
Yes. Yeah, you can't half-ass being Batman.
No.
If it's anything I've learned in all my years, you can't do it halfway. Uh, we got to meet Barbara Gordon, AKA nay Batgirl. Barbara Gordon, Commissioner Gordon's daughter, right? And now
Yep.
she's commissioner, which also felt like progress for women.
Oh, yeah.
She's in charge of Gotham, and she is voiced by Stockard Channing. Hello. I mean, unbelievable. We talked about the voice casting, and I didn't know if you knew any behind the scenes, like, did they approach Adam West about playing Bruce Wayne or
For that, I don't think they did for this one because Adam West, I think, knows his lane, where he's at.
yeah,
He is the campy
yeah,
Batman. He is that there. But, and again, I think it was also a conscious decision because you recognize Adam West's voice. As soon as he
yes,
talks, you're like, "Oh, that's Adam West." And that takes people out of that
right,
immersion. And for Barbara Gordon was played so well. It made perfect sense that she got out of being, Batgirl. She followed her father. And again, she's had multiple paths. She's had paths where she was paralyzed from the waist down. She became what's, Oracle instead versus Batgirl. But I think for this one here, this particular timeline of Batman, it made perfect sense for her to become the commissioner of Gotham
mhm,
PD. She also married, her husband, who was a district attorney, and he was also an individual, was minority as well. So it was a lot of, at the time, very, very proactive, kind of steps for those kind of things. Because back in those days, you didn't see a lot of that in there,
which I
uh,
loved.
which
Yeah,
which was great. But it made so much sense to her, and again, her performance, you could tell like she was like, "Hey, I know what Bruce Wayne is like. I have respect for him, but at the same time, I'm not gonna let him do what he did with my dad. I'm a different commissioner. I'm a
yeah,
different person." And that comes through in a lot of the scenes that she has because she comes in several episodes across the, 3 seasons the show ran, and she
and
was absolutely phenomenal.
didn't she explain that she got tired of, like, she moved on from being Batgirl, and doesn't she reference Robin moment of silence for my Burt Ward. Doesn't she reference that he got fed up with
Yep.
Batman and living in the shadow, and he went off and did his own thing?
Yep, absolutely. So that's kind of the core theme with Batman as Bruce Wayne. He can't separate himself from the the cape and cowl. He can't separate himself. No matter how much he tries, he is always going to be Batman, and
Mhm.
that ruins his relationships. The other people, they wanted more from him. They wanted, whether it be Nightwing or any one of the Robins, they wanted him to be a father figure. He wasn't able to do that. He wasn't
Yeah.
able to separate himself. Um, it's the same thing, and we see that happen, and she was, smart enough at the time to say, "Hey, I need to step away," because, she also hinted that maybe her and Bruce had a thing with each other,
Well, she was with
which was
Robin, and
yeah,
then Bruce
yeah,
lured her away. Woo!
yeah, yeah, which was again,
Controversy.
it was a spicy thing. Like I never saw that before. I was like, "What? What? Oh my god!" And I was shocked by it. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And again, it just creates those little things, like those little one lines of dialogue, create so much depth with the character and the story that it causes nerds to rage out and debate things for years and years afterwards.
Yeah. Uh, I wanna move on to episode 5. I didn't write down that much. I was just watching and gripped and following. And then, this is where I said, "Why are there only 3 seasons of this?" But we already answered that. Is there more you wanna say about Meltdown? This is the Mr. Freeze episode?
Oh my god, like, the Mr. Freeze episode, for back in the day, for me, being a nerd back in the day was, frowned upon and stuff like that. "Oh, it's not art, it's not this kind of read a book instead, you kids." I had those conversations with parents when I was, selling video games to their kids or Pokemon cards or whatever else it was, because they had this thing in their
Crack,
head. Yeah,
whatever
exactly.
you were
Well, I mean,
selling.
that's how you get through the day these days here, right? But again, they were like at the time, like, it's a waste of time. It's not really story. It's not really art. It's not really good. I'm
Mhm.
like, watch this show and tell me. Watch this episode, Meltdown, and tell me
Hmm.
this is not beautiful storytelling at its finest.
Mhm.
Because that's all I can say about it. They honored the characters so well. Bruce, he was so wary and untrustworthy of Mr. Freeze's intentions, and at first, Mr. Freeze's intentions were honorable. He wanted to do right. He wanted to make amends, but he was betrayed, and that monster came back out,
Mhm.
and he died in such a way, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched it yet, if you haven't watched it yet, but he died in such a way that was beautiful, and at the very end, the one thing I'll say about it is, Bruce looked at Terry because Terry was like, "Well, I guess you were right. He was a monster." And he looks at me and goes, "No, we were both right. He wasn't."
Mhm.
And so it
Yeah.
showed that Terry is also bringing a perspective to Bruce on how he sees things as Batman versus how he sees them. And I thought it was, man, that was just a beautifully bookended thing. And I think it was, the right calling to end a classic villain in such a way.
It was fantastic. I mean, it was because it got into lore, I had to pay attention.
Yeah, exactly.
I was watching. I was eyes on the prize. Then we did episode 8, which we will talk about right after this. This one is called Dead Man's Hand. Terry meets a girl with a dark secret. So, my first observation was, well, now I'm choosing to believe that Mark Danon didn't ghost me because he wasn't into me. It's that he was a superhero. Thank you, Batman Beyond. Terry can't keep his girl happy, Lauren Tom's character, Dana, because he keeps missing dates and dances because he's a superhero.
Oh, I felt so bad for Dana during the entire series. She was
Yeah.
always being left, and again, credit to her for staying with Terry as long as she did, 'cause again,
Mm,
I don't think that
no, no,
she should
no.
have. I don't think she
No.
should have,
You
but
need to get girl, you need to get some self-confidence. I'm joking, but I did date this guy and I was like, I mean, I know he really, really likes me. There's a reason he hasn't called me in 3 weeks or he's just really, really busy with work. And that's what women do, or that's what people do, I should say. We fool
mhm,
ourselves and delude ourselves.
yeah.
And poor Dana is continuing to do that.
Yeah, she really is, and there is, an episode, where, again, she's basically kidnapped and he has to save her, and you just feel so bad for her because you see that she really wants to feel loved from Terry, she really wants to feel important to him, and because he's standing her up as she's missing all these things, she falls into this really nasty kind of trap. But back on the Dead Man's Hand, that's topic for another time there. On the Dead Man's Hand, I thought it was such a awesome episode, and that's because, again, it showed a side of Batman that we've rarely ever seen, which is relationship drama between two people. And again, it shows that Terry is still a high school kid. He's very much a high school kid. And he's thinking like a high school kid. He wants to go and, have, nice time with some ladies. And he meets this, very, very interesting,
Melanie
girl.
Walker,
Yeah.
very forward.
Very
And I wrote,
forward.
oh, nothing suspicious about
Nothing
Melanie Walker.
Exactly. Very aggressive, very much like, hey, I want to move fast. And as a guy, like, oh, you want to move fast? That's fine with us. Let's go ahead and go there. But I thought it was so good, and I thought it was, and again, these are all like 20-minute episodes that they're doing this incredible storytelling, and you connect with the characters so quickly, which I think is kind of a lost art nowadays in some
Mhm.
media. You don't connect with the characters at all, and you have hours to work with them here. They did it in like 20-minute episodes, and I
Yeah.
thought it was just so well done. And like the family drama, you don't really see that in the Batman kind of thing as far as like family dynamics.
Yeah, so they're all the 4 suits of playing cards,
Yes.
and they fly around on these playing cards. It was very cool. And she is a bad guy. She is part of this family, but she falls for Terry
She falls for Terry.
and then betrays her family and then gets arrested anyway. I yeah, it was emotional when it's not gonna work out for Terry or for her. And but why does her dad, the patriarch, look like Colonel Sanders?
That's an interesting. It was a bold choice back in the day to do that. I don't know exactly why he does. It was a bold choice.
He has a monocle and a little white beard, and he's
Yeah,
really
yeah. I
yeah.
think they were really just trying to go off of what the classical side profile of the King of Hearts or King of Diamonds look like, and
Mhm.
that's kind of what they went with there. But yeah, he definitely brought up those vibes, and the fact that like in the scenes where they weren't in their costumes, they were all wearing this outlandish, like, Victorian era, like, outfits, like, the mom was wearing a tiara and a big hoop skirt dress and stuff like that. I'm like, "Those are bold choices to wear just, like, in the future or in just in general," and
Yep.
yet they did it, and then you had Melanie who was just looking like a regular teenage girl
Yeah.
versus all them, which was crazy.
Yep. At one point, Batman breaks into their suite,
Yep.
and he plants something. We don't see him plant it, but when the queen finds it, it's like a red button on a remote control, and she pushes it and green smoke comes out and she immediately passes out. And to me, that felt so reminiscent of the 60s TV show.
Oh, yeah. No, you
It
have
was
to have that. Yeah. 100%.
cartoony, that immediate, like, she takes one sniff and passes out, and he happens to be there to catch Batman, happens to catch her. I liked that feel of
Yeah,
that.
and that
That
was, like, the
felt
kind of
familiar.
that was the kind of fan service that the show threw in there and peppered in throughout the, entirety of the series was these little things that harken back to, "Hey, Bruce Wayne is still Bruce Wayne. He's still gonna make some crazy gadgets like
Yeah.
that we can use," and, yeah, that was a huge nod to, like, the old school, like, "Ah, here's my sleeping gas promotion grenade. Here you
Yes.
go, use that."
And also such color in a show that is very dark and very, he's in black. It often takes place at night. And this item looked brightly colored. And
Yeah.
I just enjoyed that little wink or nod, or maybe it was just not intended, but I loved it.
No, absolutely. Their use of colors, I mean, it's very tough to do something dark and gritty and bring color into, and they nailed it,
Mhm.
from everything. They nailed it from top to bottom. The city, the way it looks, I mean, it looks lived in, it looks gross, it looks dirty, but at the same time, it looks futuristic, and there are parts of it that are bright, and a lot of the villains have these kinds of elements to them, which, again, hats off to the entire team when they made the show. It was phenomenally done.
When does it take place? You said futuristic. I guess I know they have floating cars that, that kind of thing, but
It was 2040, I think. It was
okay.
supposed to be around 2040 when it happened because I think it was, like, 2018 or 2019 because it was supposed to be in the future. The first episode was still supposed to be in the future when it came out here, several years where Bruce Wayne was finally getting old and gray,
Mhm.
and then it was another 20 years after that. So I think it was 2018, 2019, maybe 2020 when the first episode was supposed to take place in,
Mhm.
and then it was 20 years later that we meet Terry McGinnis as a high
Gotcha.
schooler.
Gotcha. We are up to our last episode that we watched. A Touch of Curare. Is that how you say it?
Touch of Curare, yeah, absolutely.
Curare. A ruthless assassin called Curare, sent after DA Sam Young, who married Barbara Gordon. Batman tries to protect him, which leads to a conflict with Gordon and revelations about the past. So this is actually when we learn the backstory. Curare is voiced by a friend of mine, but she only grunts.
Yeah.
Melissa Disney, shout out. I saw in her IMDb, they gave her a different role in later episodes because she literally goes, and that's it.
Those are some of the funnest things to do, though.
I guess. I just felt like, oh, come on.
I know.
Throw her a bone. Let her say one threatening thing.
But it worked for the character, though. She said nothing, and she was so imposing. She was so just deadly the entire time, and they did it without any words for her character, which I thought was fantastically done.
I guess I just miss the humor of the old Batmans, the way he and Catwoman would repartee and the jokes they would make. And it was very self-aware and winking all the time. This show really does not have much humor.
No.
I don't think I laughed.
No.
And I guess I miss it. But that's my own personal taste. It's not good or bad. It's just... Yeah, I would have liked if this lady would, insult him a little bit and let him insult her back, and they could have a little repartee as they battle.
Yeah, and again, I think it was a conscious choice to again keep things grounded as much as you can ground things in a Batman show and stuff like that, especially in the future where there's flying cars and superheroes and mutants and stuff like that. Because again, Terry is not that Batman. He's not the type of one who's going to engage with that kind of dialogue. He's the one who's going to say something snarky, like a teenager would, versus that there. And Curare was such a great character. They brought her back for multiple episodes, just like Ink. And again, she's one of those other characters that, everyone I think resonated with is like, this is just a badass character. This character here is freaking nuts. And the fact that she is, basically just a very well-skilled assassin. She doesn't have she doesn't have a gun. She doesn't use anything else. She has a sword that she runs around with and she hacks things up and, just is absolutely just insanely skilled. Was so cool. I love Curare. I thought she was, I was hoping there'd be more of her, but she came in at the very end of season 1. I think she came in at like the second to last episode. Yeah. And then they brought her back in season 2 and then I think in season 3 for, the closing out of her chapter. But
and does she speak or no?
No, I don't believe she speaks at all in any of those.
Sorry, Melissa.
And you don't even see her. You don't even really see her face. Right. There's that scene where like her mask comes off and Terry looks at her and he's like, ugh. So you have to wonder like, what does she look like? Because he made a face. It wasn't like a normal. I'm assuming she's not doesn't look like a normal face on there because when he looked up as he looked at his hands, he was like, and then she took the thing back and she put it on and she ran away. So I'm like, what is she?
Yep. We got a real Phantom of the Opera situation. Jason, we did it.
We did it. Yay.
Batman Beyond. How do you feel?
Well, I mean, I feel great the fact that you are wanting to learn these things because, again, these are important things that you should learn. Everyone should know Batman Beyond because it's such a phenomenal show. And again, it was criminally underrated. And I can't say that enough because working back in video stores and rental stores for a long time, tried my best to promote it. And no one watched it, and it got canceled, and I was sad for a very long time. So the fact that you're watching
it originally air?
Ooh, I don't know. It originally aired, was Saturday morning cartoons, I think, is where it aired.
It's really geared towards kids. That's one thing I noticed. I mean, it's violent and adult.
Well, I mean, they had Batman, the animated series before this. They had all these other things. And again, you had cartoons that came out that had much more adult humor in it, like the Animaniacs and things like that here. So at the time it came out, I don't think it was necessarily, something they were worried about the kids thinking it's too violent. I think it was just ahead of its time. And so it just not enough people watched it.
Well, shame on them. And I'm writing down Animaniacs because that's a good one to do on my show, right?
Oh, if you've never watched Animaniacs, oh my God, that was my childhood. That and Power Rangers was my childhood back in the day.
Oh, Power Rangers is on my list.
Oh,
yes.
Power Rangers.
Jason Yeung, my new friend, thank you so much for being a part of my Nerducation. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you having me on here. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully, I get to come back and talk more nerd stuff with you because there's a lot of nerd stuff that I love. And again, it's a cool thing to be able to talk about it more openly. When I was younger and I was called a nerd, it ended up in a fight sometimes because being a nerd wasn't cool back in the day.
But it
nowadays,
is now, and I'm just jumping on the bandwagon. I'm not going to take any credit for that. Now that it's cool, I want to do it.
exactly. Well, again, thank you so much. It's been an absolute blast. I can't believe an hour's already flew by like this
I
here.
know.
But it was so much fun, though.
All right, everyone. Until next time.